I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our final preseason week recap with our three biggest winners from week 3 of the 2023 NFL preseason. But before we jump into those winners, a good few bits of news right here, starting with a couple of releases/retirements. Two different receivers, starting with former 5th overall pick by the Tennessee Titans, Corey Davis, retires from the NFL after must be 5 seasons. I want to say he was a 2017 guy.
Yep.
So after 7 seasons in the NFL, so good for him. And then the Vikings release former first-round pick wide receiver N'Keal Harry from their roster, which that really surprised me. I thought that he played pretty decent in the preseason, at least decent enough to earn a spot on that roster. You got to imagine we're going to a little more of a pass-heavy offense. We're going to have 5-6 receivers, but I guess when you have a guy who can't really break into that top 3 or top 4 wide receivers and isn't good on special teams, there's not much point in keeping him.
Yeah, and N'Keal Harry, he's tried to play tight end. He's bounced around to a couple of teams. He might be on the retirement block soon, also along with Corey Davis, who also just seemed to not fit in the New York Jets offense anymore, and he decided to just step away from football.
To each their own.
Yeah.
And then an extension here, the Raiders signed running back Josh Jacobs to a 1-year deal, 1-year extension, worth $12 million, which is just insane because he actually got paid a little bit more than Saquon Barkley, which I guess he had a better year last year than Saquon, arguably. But all of these running backs have been fighting for these longer extensions and pay running backs more. And then they're just accepting 1-year deals left and right. It's just interesting to see because they're going to be in the same situation next year now.
Yeah, and like you said, they're going to be in the same situation next year, and where they're going to be looking for their money and trying to get a long-term deal. And it's going to be interesting to see if it ends up the same way, if they get held out till the end of training camp and accept another 1 or 2 year or a short deal, or if any of these guys really do get the long-term extension.
Yeah, now with Jonathan Taylor on the trade block, that just adds to the devaluation of the market. So we'll see what happens next year. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of deja vu in 2024. And then a good bunch of trades here, starting with 3 from the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals trade linebacker Isaiah Simmons to the New York Giants for a 7th-round pick. They also trade offensive tackle Josh Jones to the Texans for a 5th-round pick, and then they also send a 7th-round pick along with Josh Jones. And then they also trade for quarterback Josh Dobbs and release Colt McCoy. So lots of moves by the Arizona Cardinals right here, and a lot of questionable moves by the Arizona Cardinals, to say the least.
Yeah, they let go of 3 big-name players, including Colt McCoy, their starting quarterback, through most of last season after Kyler Murray got hurt, and they're starting quarterback through most of the preseason. So it's interesting to see that they're either going to go with Josh Dobbs or rookie Clayton Tune out of Utah. Yep. So I knew he was out of the draft class this year. So it'll be interesting to see which one they go with. But either one looks like that great of an option. And it seems like the Cardinals are maybe trying to lose.
You know, everyone's saying they're tanking for Caleb Williams, but quarterback with Kyler Murray is one of the only things that they really have going for them right now. I mean, Kyler Murray isn't an elite quarterback by any means, but he's definitely not bad, and there's a lot of other spots, especially even now adding on inside linebacker and offensive tackle that they could fill instead. Also, in my eyes, Caleb Williams is pretty similar to Kyler Murray in college. So.
They have similar skill sets, and maybe they're tanking for Marvin
Harrison Jr. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
The big wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's looking like he might be a top pick in the draft next year.
He's far and away my favorite receiver in a long time, definitely. And then finally, the 49ers trade quarterback Trey Lance to the Dallas Cowboys and in return only get a 4th-round pick. it's ironic, Lance was a former third overall pick, and then he was named the third string quarterback for the 49ers, and then now gets traded to a team, the Dallas Cowboys, where he finds himself again as the third string quarterback behind Dak Prescott and assumably Cooper Rush. So not much moving up for Trey Lance.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that the 49ers brass is able to withstand this trade because they invested a lot into Trey Lance. They invested 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick, all in the same draft to go, I believe, a trade with the Dolphins to move up and select Trey Lance in the 2021 draft.
Correct, yes.
Yep, so, and that's interesting because comparatively, the Green Bay Packers have invested 3 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick in Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love over a collective of 30-plus years. So, I don't know, maybe I'm just saying the Packers might do it right because that brass is definitely able to, spread out those picks along the way, and at least, we got a couple of Super Bowls out of it, whereas the 49ers, they have not gotten any Super Bowls out of it and really find themselves, in a possible quarterback conundrum if if Brock Purdy gets hurt again.
Yeah, they really got lucky snagging Brock Purdy as Mr. Irrelevant, or else they would be in a lot of trouble right now from the media and fans making fun of them. But it's crazy some of the clear blemishes that winning can cover up, because I don't think that coaching staff and GM office is near as good as people give them credit for it. But as long as they can put up wins, that's all they need to do.
Yeah.
So now we will jump on in to our 3 biggest winners. Callan, I'll let you take it first.
And I want to start with the Packers and their game against the Seahawks, where they came back and won 19-15. And I want to give a shout out to Alex Magoo, our third string quarterback, who led a comeback drive from 75 yards down the field with a big pass to Jadakiss Bonds, a 52-yard bomb on third down to help seal or get into the red zone and help seal the win for the Packers. So just good for those guys to get in and play some exciting minutes, be some really exciting football, and it felt like real football. It felt like the juices were flowing. It was exciting to watch the end of that game and see if Magoo could lead them down the field. So Magoo's got one game-winning drive for the Packers compared to Jordan Love and Sean Clifford, who have 0. So I don't know, maybe it'll be Alex Magoo.
That's a good point. He's got the lead on them right now. I remember 4 or 5 years ago watching none other than Taylor Heineke lead an amazing game-winning drive for the Minnesota Vikings in the preseason. And he turned out pretty well for him. He got a few starting jobs and really played well and got paid by a few different teams.
Yeah.
So maybe Magoo will take a similar trek. I want to point out a corner for my first winner, and more specifically, Michael Ojemudia. The former Iowa Hawkeye picked up 2 tackles as well as 3 quality pass breakups in the final preseason game for the Chicago Bears. And as I just said, he's on the Chicago Bears, which is an absolute land of opportunity at corner right now, because outside of Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon entering his second season, they don't really have much at all at that corner position, so he might have moved himself up that ladder a good little bit.
Yeah, they don't have a whole lot of cornerback depth, and it's good to see guys like the Michael Ojemudia from Iowa getting playing time, even if it's in the preseason. You always love to see those hometown kids that you root for in college get playing time.
The Iowa boys, you gotta love it.
And then with my second one, I want to give a shout out to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who won the backup quarterback job for the Cleveland Browns. Now, he played spectacular this preseason and had a really great training camp, so much so that they traded Joshua Dobbs, their original backup quarterback, to the Cardinals that we mentioned earlier. So Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the 4th-round rookie out of UCLA, claimed the backup quarterback job to Deshaun Watson. And you never know when it's possible to be thrown in with Deshaun Watson playing.
Yeah, and it's very different play styles, Kirk Cousins and DTR, but I remember when we were at the draft and we were sitting there and DTR was still there in the 4th round and the Vikings hadn't picked a quarterback yet. I was kind of hoping they would have grabbed him, and they didn't, and now I think they're kind of regretting it because he has absolutely balled out this preseason. And he has a chance to see the field, certainly, depending on what Deshaun Watson can do in Cleveland.
Yeah, he's looked better than other past UCLA quarterbacks like Brett Hundley, who did not perform well in the NFL.
Most definitely. He's doing better than Brett Hundley so far. Now I'm going to be moving on from an Iowa Hawkeye to a Nebraska Cornhusker for my second winner this week. And through the entire preseason, I have Trey Palmer, the 6th round pick and Tampa Bay Buccaneer wide receiver, picking up my second winner spot. Now, throughout the entire preseason, he's picked up 7 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. But more impressively than that stat line is the catches he's been making. Anything that's put in his radius, he's been catching, including multiple circus catches, one juggling ball in the back of the end zone where he was somehow able to get both of his feet in, and one this most prior week 3 where he literally went over the back of the defender and caught it. So just really impressive stuff from Trey Palmer. And sadly for him, that's about the only position they really have locked in there in Tampa Bay right now, is the wide receiver position.
Yeah.
I think he certainly has a future there for the Buccaneers.
Although with Russell Gage getting hurt, that does open up a spot.
I forgot about that.
For
That's
the
true.
slot to open up. So that is a possibility that he could fill that spot. He was always an athletic specimen and just never really fit into the Iowa Hawkeye or Nebraska Cornhusker system in that well. And he could always play ball really well. He just never fit in the system, and maybe he will fit in this Tampa Bay NFL system. But, you know, some guys are just more NFL ready than than college ready, and you see that with these late round selections.
You certainly do see it happen.
And with my third and final shout out for the winners for this preseason is another backup quarterback that won a job, and that's Tyson Bagent, the Shepherd quarterback the quarterback for the Bears out of Shepherd College. And he won the backup quarterback job over PJ Walker, who they also released earlier this week. And it's interesting that he was able to win the backup quarterback job because he has such a different style than Justin Fields. He's much more of a pocket passer and really proved that he could pocket pass well during this preseason and training camp. He had a spectacular training camp, and I don't know, did you see him play at all?
Yeah, he played really well.
Yeah, he played really well. He played very well. I can't remember how well his stats were, but he had quite a few touchdowns and no interceptions.
And you mentioned Shepherd. Shepherd was a huge passing school, so he did come out of a system where he was more of a pocket passer and threw the ball for a lot of attempts each and every game. But one thing I really liked from him in that game that I watched week 3 and throughout the entire preseason is he wasn't afraid to use his legs and show off that running ability, which, as you mentioned, he's pretty different from Justin Fields. So the fact that he was willing to leave his comfort zone and show off for that and show that he can fit that offense, I think really helped him out and, of course, moved him to that backup quarterback spot.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I think it'll be really interesting if he ends up getting playing time. Because, like I said, with Deshaun Watson, same thing with Deshaun Watson and Justin Fields, those running quarterbacks, they could get hurt at any time. Everybody's one play away from getting their big spot in the NFL.
Definitely. And then for the final winner for this 2023 NFL preseason, I have none other than the whole team in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I will point out that I feel like Pittsburgh played their starters a lot more than everybody else, which makes sense because a lot of their starters are first, second, third year guys. So you want to keep getting them those reps and make sure that they're game ready. I thought that unit looked really good together. I mean, from the most tenured Steeler in Deontay Johnson, which is crazy to say considering he was only drafted in 2019, that he's the most tenured person on that offense. But even down to their first round pick this year in Broderick Jones out of Georgia, everyone got some snaps and everyone played really well, and more than anything played really well together. Especially two people who played really well together were Kenny Pickett and George Pickens. That Pickett to Pickens connection might be elite in the future. We'll have to see if it keeps developing. But then another specific player I wanted to point out was actually on the special teams, and second-year wide receiver out of Memphis, Calvin Austin, and his return skills. He is a little guy. I want to say he's only like 5'8" or something like that. About 150 pounds soaking wet, as some people like to say. But he literally brought a little spark to that return game because he was looking shifty out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's can really help out the special teams and any offensive unit if you can get a spark from any return. And I really like the Pickens to Pickett connection. Pickett to Pickett.
It's hard to say.
It's an elite tongue twister as well. It really is, and it is quite the connection this building in the NFL. It's going to take the NFL by storm this year because every drive that Pickett led this year in preseason ended up in a touchdown. And that's not only to Pickens, but to Deontay Johnson and their new wide receiver, Allen Robinson, who also has been playing well this preseason. So it'll be interesting to see how well the Steelers do this year.
It will certainly be interesting. So that was our 3 winners from the week 3 of the 2023 NFL preseason, and I guess from the preseason in general for this year. Now we have one more gap week next week, and then it is the official start of NFL football.
Mm-hmm.
It is finally here. It's so close you can taste it. So make sure to stay tuned in here to Eating W's because we will keep providing the most quality news and takes for the NFL.
Yep.
But until then, don't forget
to eat the W.